Well, to start at the end, this story proves the power of love can overcome truly impossible odds. But the beginning of it is just plain heartbreaking. A 5-year-old boy gets hopelessly lost from his mother in a bustling city market in the Philippines. He can't find her, so eventually he's taken to an orphanage. And he's lucky he's adopted by a caring Australian family. He goes on to lead a happy and successful life here. Except something is always missing. 6 months ago, 30 years after getting lost, Joel de Carteret couldn't ignore the pain any longer. He had to find his birth mother. But in a country of 100 million, where would he even start to look?
Hello, Ate. Do you missing boy? No.
35-year-old Joel de Carteret is looking for himself.
Missing boy, 1985. He was 5 years old.
In this hot, crowded Filipino marketplace,
The missing boy.
he is searching for answers.
Have you seen him?
He needs to find clues about a little boy lost here in 1985,
1985.
hoping it might lead him to his mother, a woman whose face he can't remember, whose name he doesn't know.
Do you know anyone who's been around here for a long time?
Joel's incredible tale begins right here, in the poor outskirts of Manila in the Philippines.
I guess my earliest memories was of my mother being a dressmaker. I just remember this presence and this love that sort of came out of my mum.
It was one small moment that changed the course of his life.
I literally remember walking out here and turning right and heading down.
Back in 1985, 5-year-old Joel woke up in his home near the market to find his single mother already gone. She'd left for work in a sewing factory early that morning, leaving him in the care of her flatmate.
She didn't want to wake me, so she just went off to work and left me at home. And it wasn't like she left me at home by myself. Like I was in a house of I think it was like 5 occupants. And I remember waking up and, she wasn't there. And, the first child's instinct is to look for their mother.
The 5-year-old Joel set out on the unforgiving backstreets, hoping to find his mum. Eventually, he reached the covered, sprawling food market. When you're inside, it's easy to see how a small boy could get lost in this chaotic, crowded maze. How long do you think you were wandering around here?
For all day, I reckon. I would have been wandering around all day just trying to find my parents.
It would have been a bit of a horror movie to your eyes.
Yeah, like with all the knives and the pigs' heads, and I would have been panicking.
When Joel wandered in here looking for his mum, imagine how frightening and daunting it must have been. As a tiny 5-year-old, his view of this world would have looked a lot more like this. A jumbled frenzy of hustle and bustle and lots of legs attached to some very strange faces. Miraculously, though, one man recognised that this little boy was genuinely lost and rescued him from this crowded marketplace. Jose Mancello, a kind taxi driver, saved Joel.
It's okay, it's okay.
I was so lucky. I was so lucky that a decent man saw that this boy was lost. He had a choice whether to take advantage or do the right thing. If it wasn't for him, chances are I could have ended up, who knows where I could have ended up.
Joel was dropped off at a shelter for children, an orphanage. They searched everywhere for his mother with no luck. He was assigned a social worker who appeared in court on his behalf to make the young Filipino foundling available for international adoption. This lonely place became the only home a young Joel remembers.
It was 18 months. 18 months I lived in the orphanage.
Must have seemed like a lifetime at that age.
Yeah, being there for so long, it's just, you think that's your life now. It's just sitting and waiting and just wondering if they're going to come and pick me up.
Eventually, a young Joel realised his mum wasn't going to come. But then, just like that, his life story changed. When you look back at that photo, he's quite angelic, isn't he?
Oh, and he's been angelic all his life.
A young Melbourne couple arrived, desperate to adopt the tiny boy they'd only seen in photographs.
He was a dear little boy. He looked beautiful and he had a lovely little nature.
So by the end of the first day, you thought, that's it, he's a keeper?
Oh, definitely. Most definitely, yes.
If you can imagine, like, you know, these people look different, they smelled different, they sounded different, but there was no hesitation when my mother carer said, you know, would you like to live with these people in Australia? I was like, yeah, I do. You know, get me out of here.
Julie de Carteret is Joel's adoptive mum. She couldn't wait to bring him home.
I'll never forget it. We got onto the Qantas aircraft and Joel was just a little kid and he went, oh, yes!
That's right. The young Filipino adoptee settled quickly into life in suburban Melbourne.
He just slotted in beautifully. He was determined that he was going to speak English. He learned English from watching Tony Barber's Sale of the Century every single night. Every night he would repeat the words that were said on that show every night. And Tony Barber was his hero for a long time.
Joel's adoptive parents separated soon after he arrived back in Australia. But Australian life with Julie still treated Joel well. He graduated school looking Filipino but every bit the Aussie teenager, interested in filmmaking and hip-hop.
When I dance, it's for me about telling a story about it.
And in 2008, he was a finalist on hit reality TV show So You Think You Can Dance. But Joel always hoped his Filipino mum might still be alive.
When I think about the years and the pain and the separation loss and the grief that she's gone through, you know, it's like there is a bit of that, like, oh man, like, it's kind of like guilt to have had that blessed life, you know.
So last year, 30 years after he was lost, he decided to begin the daunting search for his biological mum.
It's just so hard, like, where do I start? And I told myself, like, I just have to get there. When I get there, I'll just figure it out.
Hello. But in a country of 100 million people, and without so much as his mother's first name, or any indication of whether she was still alive, to his Aussie family, the task seemed utterly impossible. Indeed, a road to heartbreak.
I was worried about how he would be able to move on when he didn't find his mother. In my mind, it wasn't if he didn't find her, it was when, because there was no name, there was no birth date, there was no region, there was nothing to go on. I have always, in my heart, just thought that it was just a brick wall that he would strike.
Still, Joel was determined. Late last year, he returned to the Philippines and Munoz Market, trying to find some thread, any clue about who his mother might have been.
Good afternoon out there. You missing boy?
And then, after a month of tireless searching, finally, a lead.
He's in the house.
Stallholders remembered a young boy named Dante, who had gone missing from the same market in the 1980s.
Dante, he had very similar characteristics as me.
Very quickly, the workers at Munoz Market located Dante's parents, named Vicky and Danny. And Vicky needed no convincing that Joel was her missing son, Dante.
I actually started showing her other photos of me in the orphanage and other younger photos. She broke down crying and she was looking at the photos and pointing and going, that's Dante, that's Dante.
Coming up,
It was a big wake-up call for both Vicky and I.
Joel's joy turns to heartbreak. And you wanted to believe.
I definitely wanted to believe.
and how this TV star came to the rescue.
The question was hanging. We had to find the answer.
That's next on 60 Minutes. It's December last year, and Joel de Carteret thinks he's been reunited with his mum. Vicky and Danny Placiente are certain that Joel was their long-lost son, Dante, a boy who had gone missing in Munoz Market in the 1980s and was never found. They welcomed him back with open arms, sure that Joel was their missing child. It's emotionally pretty convincing, isn't it?
Yeah. And I gave her the choice, like, would you like to do a DNA test? And she said yes.
But Joel's joy was short-lived. The DNA test showed Vicky and Danny were not Joel's biological parents. He wasn't their long-lost Dante, their missing son. When the DNA test came back negative,
Yeah.
massive disappointment.
Yeah, absolutely. For both Vicky and I, it was a big wake-up call to, like, what you feel and what you know are totally different. She had the same nose as me.
And you wanted to believe.
I definitely wanted to believe this, for sure.
But Joel's crushing disappointment didn't last. It was replaced with a fierce determination. If he was going to find his biological mother, he needed to get his message to as many people as possible.
Oras na para malaman nyo ang State of the Nation. Magandang gabi. Ako po si Jessica Soho.
Jessica Soho is the Philippines' answer to Oprah. A much-loved broadcaster and journalist, she's been beamed into the living rooms of Filipinos for over 30 years.
It's unimaginable for me, for a mom to have lost her son that long, 31 years. I mean, how many hells or lifetimes did she have to go through not knowing where her kid is?
Jessica took up Joel's cause, telling his story to her TV audience of tens of millions.
When we did Joel's story, didn't get to his biological parents, it was like the question was hanging, and we felt like we had to find the answer. We could not leave it hanging.
You wanted resolution almost as much as he did.
We had to see this through.
The TV anchor, along with some of the Philippines' most famous radio DJs, begged the public for assistance.
You want to call out to your mom on the radio this morning and hope and pray that she or someone who knows her is listening?
Incredibly, someone sent in an old family photo. Right in the middle was a young boy, lost in Manila near that same market in 1985.
When we gave that photo a second look, a really good look, there's this little boy in this photo that could be nobody else other than Joel.
Herminia Rio, the young mother in the old photograph, was located, still living close by to Munoz Market. She agreed to meet Joel.
After I've gone through the experience with Vicky and Danny, I didn't want to put myself on the line again. You know, I didn't want to have these hopes and be sort of shattered again.
This is the actual moment they met.
Are you Jojo?
At first, they're both hesitant and awkward. Then, just emotional.
She just started sobbing and hugged me. Probably after about like 5 or 10 minutes, I started to feel it. I was like, oh, this is my mum. You know, this is who I've been looking for 2.5 months.
This time, the DNA test confirmed what Joel already thought. He'd finally found his mum.
All I was asking her was, are you okay? You know, it was me going, sorry, Mum, for walking off. I found my way home. I'm sorry for putting you through all this, you know.
Sorry for coming home 20-odd years late.
Yeah, yeah.
Did she tell you off for that?
No, she hasn't told me off yet. I'm sure she will.
But after just 24 hours with his biological mother, trying to catch up on 30 lost years, his time in the Philippines was up. He had to return to Australia.
I was trying not to sort of, you know, think too far ahead, but I was like, how good would it be if my two mothers were to meet? That would be just amazing.
Coming up, Joel's Aussie mum's unexpected doubts.
It's mixed emotions. Am I doing the right thing by showing her how happy we've been?
As she meets the mother left behind. That's next on 60 Minutes.
Ready?
Oh! Come on, Totes.
Joel de Carteret couldn't wait to tell his Aussie mum all about meeting his biological mum, Erminia. But for Julie, it's complicated. It brings emotions she didn't expect.
I'm lucky to have him, but I'm really sorry that she hasn't been a part of his life. I can't imagine how a person just gets out of bed after going through something like that. So I'm sorry that she hasn't been, or that Joel hasn't been part of her life as he's been part of mine.
So Joel decides there needs to be another family reunion.
It was his first year in school.
This trip, he's preparing to take his Aussie mother to meet his Filipino mum. A new bike.
So, a new bike on his first Christmas in Australia. I've been putting together a little photograph album for Herminia of Joel's life through the years. Gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous.
What happened?
He's still
Lost my
gorgeous,
hair.
still gorgeous. And I'm giving my happy memories to a woman who should have had happy times with Joel. So it's mixed emotions. Am I doing the right thing by showing her how happy we've been? I often think that my happiness has been at the expense of another woman losing her child. And that's really hard to process.
Today in Manila is a day that both women believed would never arrive.
I'm going through every emotion, actually. I'm excited, but I am nervous. It's a big thing. It's a very big thing. I'm meeting Joel's mother, his biological mother. She is Joel. Is your mum? No.
With every step, the lost years melt away.
So many.
Finally, two mums embrace. Bonded by the love of their son, who took the long way home.
Thanks for taking care of my son.
Oh, he's missed you.
I really appreciate it.
I always knew that there was another woman out there who loved him, never for a minute thinking that I would meet her.
Is that wonderful, or was that wonderful?
I still can't believe my eyes seeing my two mothers together. So,
And to see Joel with his mother with my own two eyes is wonderful, just wonderful. And she's beautiful.
I look like more like my mother, don't I?
Which mother?
For Erminia, pure joy after 30 years of pain.
Erminia, what do you think about finally meeting Julie?
I'm happy.
Are you happy?
I'm very happy.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And thank you.
very much.
Great pleasure.
And for Julie, pure relief.
Your boy has given me so much joy. So much joy. I've always known that Joel needed this to make his life complete. And I've always been there wishing and hoping it could happen. And I wanted her to like me. Is that silly? I really wanted her to like me. I mean, after all, I did the job that she would have loved to have done. So I really wanted her to meet me. I wanted to meet her. And we do like each other.
Oh, we could tell that.
Herminia takes us all to her new house, incredibly just a few kilometres away from Joel's Manila orphanage. Jessica Soho's much-loved TV show means that Joel is a household name in these parts of the Philippines. And the entire neighbourhood has turned out to watch his triumphant homecoming.
Felt like Lancelot coming back to the castle.
It was rock star, wasn't it? It was really, I felt like the Queen. shaking hands. It was wonderful. Their happiness for Herminia was just showed all over them. It was wonderful.
It
just
was
wonderful.
It was amazing.
Joel meets his extended family.
I have a cousin.
Oh, cousins.
Yeah,
Yes.
This is Arin and this is Francis.
Hi, Francis.
Anak, please. Magkasunod to. Please mo na.
Instant family.
That's us, the family.
And Julie finally has a chance to walk Herminia through the lost years.
And that is celebrating his 21st birthday.
Dear Mom, as you know, I was found on the street at Munoz Market.
Trying to make amends for the actions of his 5-year-old self, Joel has written a heartfelt letter to
And I
Herminia.
really want you to know that I'm sorry I got lost. I'm sorry I lost my way. I'm sorry for not waiting for you to return that day. But most of all, I'm sorry for causing you all those years of worry and grief. I can't even begin to imagine how tough it would have been for you.
There are a lot of missing people all over the world, but I also know that there are lots of good hearts.
That's good. Yeah.
It's a wonderful story to tell, the depth of a mother's heart.
The flying gets harder as you fall. Gravity.
Oh man, it was so hard. There was so many times I wanted to give up and go home and just say, you know, at least I tried, you know. But
That's not in your nature, Joel.
yeah, you taught me that. And part of this journey was about finding out who I am. It's almost like finding Ma was finding me, you know, finding that little boy that got lost.
But after all that, you finally got to see your two mums, arm in arm. Was that everything you wished for?
Yeah, it definitely was the ultimate gift.
Hello, I'm Liam Bartlett. Thanks for watching. To keep up with the latest from 60 Minutes Australia, make sure you subscribe to our channel. You can also download the 9Now app for full episodes and other exclusive 60 Minutes content.